Okay, welcome back to our next section in our chapter, which is the installing the I/O and the peripheral devices. Now, installing I/O or peripheral devices or an external device is very easy to do, and for the most part usually goes off without a hitch. You just have to remember that all devices need device drivers or a BIOS to control them and to interface with the operating system. A simply input device such as the mouse and the keyboard can be controlled by the BIOS or have an embedded device drivers built into the operating system. And for these devices, you don't have to install additional device drivers. But there are some peripheral devices that you might be called on to install that may need additional drivers, and they can include things actually as the keyboard and the mouse. Now, typically the BIOS has all the drivers needed to make the keyboard and the mouse work, or the operating system will as well, but sometimes we have new special fancy keyboard and mice that might need additional drivers, for example if you have a multimedia keyboard. Also, barcode reader, biometric devices, your touchscreen, scanners, even a microphone, gamepads, joysticks, digitizers, digital cameras, webcams, speakers, and display devices all may need additional drivers in order for you to get the full features of them to work. Now, for the most part, all of them are very simple to install. If you can install one, once you get the hang of that one, all the others pretty much work out the same as well. Now, we're going to go over the general procedures to install one of these types of devices. One, I know you don't want to hear it, but read the manufacturer's directions. When we follow these directions, the installation goes a lot better. And if you later have a problem with the installation, you can always go back to the manufacturer's instructions, or you can call the manufacturer for help, and you will be able to say that I followed the directions exactly as stated in the manual. It just didn't work for me. 2. Make sure that the drivers provided with the device are written for the operating system that you're using. Now, remember that the 64-bit drivers are required with a 64-bit operating system, 32 are required for 32. And you can sometimes use drivers that were written for Vista with Windows 7, but for best results, try to use the drivers that are written for the operating system that you currently have installed. You can download the drivers that you need from the manufacturer's website. In most cases, I have found if I'm using a legacy device like an older printer, I can find the drivers for a Windows 7 machine, and now today, Windows 8 machine on the manufacturer's websites. 3. Make sure that the motherboard port that you are using has been enabled. Most likely it is enabled, but if the device is not recognized when you plug it in, check the system's BIOS and setup and make sure that you've got it turned on. In addition, BIOS setup might offer an option to configure a USB port to be able to go with high-speed 3.0 USB or high-speed or super-speed 3.0 and high-speed 2.0, or worst-case scenario, the original USB 1.1. If you're having problems with the motherboard port, don't forget to update the motherboard drivers that control the port. Now, if we go back to the old school, when we're talking about the BIOS drivers, please remember we only update the BIOS drivers or the BIOS firmware as a last resort. Okay? 4, you want to install drivers or plug in the device. Some devices, such as the USB printer, require to plug in the device before installing the drivers, and some devices require to install the drivers first before you plug in the device. It doesn't matter which is installed first in some devices. Carefully read and follow the device documentation. For example, the documentation for a digital camera says that if you install the camera before installing the drivers will not install properly. So if you plug in the device first, the Found New Hardware Wizard will appear and go through the steps for the installation for the drivers and the motherboard. Okay. Next thing I want to discuss something as simple as the mouse and the keyboard. Now, for the most part, we've always just plugged a mouse or a keyboard into the USB or the PS2 port, and Windows immediately recognized it. Now, if you don't remember, the PS2 port, if you have to have the PS2 plugged in before you turn on the machine in order for the BIOS to be able to set up the PS2 keyboard. Now, for keyboards with special features, such as a multimedia keyboard, you need to install the drivers that came with the keyboard before you can use the features. You can later use Device Manager to uninstall, disable, or enable most devices. However, USB devices are managed differently. To uninstall a USB device, such as a USB keyboard, in the control panel, you click uninstall. You would click uninstall a program in the Program Features window. Select that device and then click to change. Follow the directions on screen to uninstall that device. Now, what I've been running into a lot lately, especially at some of my customers, are biometric devices. Now, a biometric device is an input device that inputs the biological data about a person, which can be input data to identify a person's fingerprints, their handprints, face, voice, eye recognition, and even a handwritten signature. So, for example, you can use a fingerprint reader to log into Windows. Now, these fingerprint readers are not to be considered as the only authentication to control access to sensitive data. For that, you also want to use a strong password, which is a password that is not easy to guess. Fingerprint readers can look like a mouse and use a wireless or a USB connection, and a lot of laptops today will find that they are embedded right into the bezel on the laptop. Sometimes we'll find them embedded into the keyboard or on a flash drive or other peripheral device. Now, most fingerprint readers that are not embedded in other devices like a USB connection. Okay? As with other USB devices, read the documentation to know if you should install the drivers first or if you install the device first. Another common peripheral that we install today are digital cameras and camcorders. Now, these items can hold images and videos both in embedded memory that cannot be removed or exchanged, and in removable or flash memory cards like an SD card. Both of these types of memories retain data without battery life. Now, here's two ways to transfer images from your camera or your camcorder to the PC. One, you can connect the camera or camcorder to the PC using a cable. Now, using embedded memory or flash memory cards, you can connect a device to your computer using a USB or FireWire port and cable. To connect a device to the PC, you might first need to install the software and then connect a device, or you might need to connect a device and then install the software. Read the camera or camcorder documentation to find out which order you're supposed to use. And after the device and software has been installed, the software displays a menu to download images or video to your PC. Install the memory card in the PC, and then if images or videos are stored on the flash memory card that's installed in your device, you can then remove the card and then insert it in a flash memory card slot on your computer. Most laptop computers have one or more of these slots. If your computer doesn't have this slot, or the slot is not compatible with the type of card that you're using, you've got two choices. Perhaps you can purchase an adapter so that your small memory card will fit into a larger memory slot, or you can install what's called a memory card reader that provides a memory card slot to fit your card. I have an example of one of those behind me, and then we have one in the classroom as well, and it connects to your PC using a USB port. Now, when the memory card is recognized by Windows, it is assigned a drive letter, and then you can see it listed in Windows Explorer. Now, use Windows Explorer to copy, move, or delete the files from the card. Another common feature that we have today are webcams. Now, a webcam or web camera is embedded in most laptops and can also be installed as a peripheral device using a USB port or some other port. Now, for example, the webcam that's shown here behind me works well for personal chat sessions and video conferencing, and has a built-in microphone. Now, first thing we have to do is we use the setup CD to install the software, and then plug in the webcam to a USB port. Now, a webcam comes with a built-in microphone, and you can use this microphone, or you can use the microphone port on your computer. Now, in most cases, if it's not going through USB, sometimes it's a separate cord coming out of the webcam that plugs into your microphone port on the back of your computer or in the front. Most software allows you to select the input device that you choose to use. Now, the next device that I want to talk about, I'm only going to touch on it briefly because I haven't run into them myself, but they are going to be covered on your A+ exam, and that's something called a graphic tablet. Now, this is an input device, also called a digitizer tablet or a digitizer, that is used to hand draw and is likely to connect to a USB port. It comes with a stylus that works like a pencil or a pencil on your tablet, and the graphics tablet and stylus can be more of like a replacement to a mouse or a touchpad on a laptop. And some graphics tablets come with a mouse. Now, graphics tablets are popular with graphic artists and others who use desktop publishing applications. To install the tablet, you would do it the same way you do other USB devices. And then some additional software will probably be bundled with these devices to enhance its functions. Another device that I want to talk about is called a MIDI device. Now, we normally don't hear a lot about it, but I've decided to go ahead and include it in this lecture because, believe it or not, me being a non-musically inclined person, my own children have a MIDI connection for our computer because they have Yamaha keyboards and other devices here in the house. And so we had to set those up on our devices. Now, MIDI, which stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, or pronounced MIDI, is a set of standards that are used to represent music in digital form. Now, using the MIDI format, each individual note played by each individual instrument is digitally stored. Now, MIDI standards are used to connect electronic music equipment like the keyboard and mixers, or to connect the equipment to a PC for input, output, and editing. Most sound cards can play MIDI files, and most electronic instruments have MIDI ports. Now, a MIDI port is a 5-pin DIN port that looks like a PS2 keyboard port, only considerably larger. And if you had the opportunity to see an older style keyboard port, it looked exactly like these larger MIDI ports. Now, a MIDI port is either an input port or an output port, but it is not both. Normally, you would have to connect the MIDI output port to a mixer, but you can also use it to connect to a PC. Now, I'm not going to go any deeper to the whole MIDI thing. If you want more information on MIDIs, like the types of cables and their graphics, stuff like that, you can go online to the PDF files that I have posted for you. Now for something that we are going to be dealing with more and more in the evolvement of our industry, and that is touchscreens. Now, a touchscreen is an input device that uses a monitor or an LCD panel as the backdrop for input options. In other words, a touchscreen is a grid that senses taps, finger pinches, and slides, and sends these events to the computer by the way of USB port or other type of connections. Now, some laptops have built-in touchscreens, and you can also install a touchscreen on top of a monitor screen as an add-on device. For most of us, it is our smartphones, our tablets, our Kindle readers. Those are what we would call touchscreen devices. Now, we also call them capacitive devices. Now, the capacitive device is one that uses not pressure, but it actually senses the electricity of your fingers. So your iPhones and your Windows phones and your Samsung smartphones, those are all capacitive touchscreens, as opposed to the type of touchscreen that actually cause you to put pressure on the screen, which we normally don't see very much anymore. Now, some monitors for desktop systems have the built-in touchscreen capability, much like the one that we have in our classroom. Now, for desktop monitors, you clamp the touchscreen over the monitor for most installations. Then you install the drivers before you connect the touchscreen to the computer by way of USB. Then after you install the drivers and the touchscreen, then you have to use management software that came bundled with the device to decide how the monitor screen or how much of the monitor screen is taken up by the touchscreen. And you're going to do something called calibrating the touchscreen. Okay. And then later on, if you change the monitor resolution, please remember you have to recalibrate that touchscreen in order for our touches to all work out perfectly. Now, there's something that we use in our classroom back in the server room, and it's called a KVM switch. Now, KVM stands for Keyboard, Video, and Mouse. Now, it allows you to use one keyboard, monitor, and mouse for multiple computers. This KVM switch can be useful, as in our case, a server room or a testing lab where you use more than one computer and want to keep more desks clear for multiple keyboards, mice, and monitors. or if you just simply want to lower the cost of the extra peripherals on your desktop. Now, as the figure here shows behind me, it's a KVM switch that can connect to a keyboard, monitor, and mouse. It does a microphone, speakers, and also computers. Now, this device uses USB ports for the keyboard and mouse. We have one in our classroom that uses PS2, and then in order for us to use the newer style keyboards and mice, I have a USB to PS2 converter for those. Now, the one that we have in our server room can connect up to 8 keyboard and mouse, and we have, there's more in the market that can do more, and they can be daisy chained. A KVM switch does not require that you install device drivers to use it. Just plug in the cables from each computer to the device, and then you plug in one monitor, one mouse, one keyboard, and then possibly a microphone and speakers if your KVM supports it. And then to switch between the computers by using either a hotkey on the keyboard buttons on top of the KVM switch, or a wired remote, or on like the older style that I have, you just push the button on the switch to decide which one you want to be operating. Now let's talk about adapter cards. Now, in this part of the chapter, we're going to learn how to install and configure the adapter cards. And these cards include a video card, sound card, storage controller, serial port, FireWire, and so on. And we're even going to talk about a TV tuner and video capture card, but really all we're going to talk about there is the difference between the two, because a lot of people get that confused. They think they're one and the same. Now, the purpose of adding an adapter card to a system is to have available the external ports or internal connectors that the card would provide. Regardless of the type of card that you're installing, when preparing to install an adapter card, be sure to verify and do this. 1. Verify that the card fits in an empty expansion slot. I can't tell you how many customers I've had in the past, or even we've done it in our own classroom or the classroom next door to us, where the wrong adapter card was purchased. When I'm saying wrong, it might have fit in the slot, but it was the wrong profile, and therefore you couldn't put the cover back on, or you couldn't fasten the card into the slot, and that's an important thing that needs to be taken care of. So 1, verify that it fits in the slot. And there are several different types. We can AGP, PCI, PCI Express. Make sure you purchase the one for the available slot that you have. To help with airflow, try to leave an empty slot between the cards. Especially try to leave an empty slot beside the video card, which puts off a lot of heat. Verify that device drivers for your operating system are available. Check the card's documentation and make sure you have the drivers for your operating system. Make sure the card you purchase is compatible with your operating system. Make sure you've got 64-bit if you're running if you're running a 64-bit system. It might be possible to download drivers for your operating system from the manufacturer's website. Back up any important data that's not already backed up. Before you open the computer case, be sure to back up any important data on the hard drive. Know your starting point. Know what works and what doesn't work on your system. Can you connect to the network and the internet, print, use the other installed adapter cards without any errors? So here's some general directions when you're installing. Okay. 1, read the documentation. For most cards, you install the card first and the drivers next, but some adapter cards might not work that well. 2, if you're installing a card to replace an onboard port, access the BIOS setup and disable the port. We can't always assume that by installing an extra card like a video that the onboard video would automatically be turned off. So be wary of that. Always wear your grounding bracelet to protect yourself against ESD. Shut down your system. Unplug the power cords and hold in the power button to remove any residual electricity. Locate the slots you plan to use and remove the faceplate cover from the slot if one has been installed. Sometimes the faceplate might punch out or snap out, and sometimes you have to remove the faceplate screw to remove the faceplate. Remove the screw in the top of the expansion slot. Save the screw because you're going to use it later. Remove the card from its anti-static bag and insert it into the expansion slot. Be careful to push the card straight down into the slot without rocking the card from side to side. Rocking it can widen the expansion slot and then give you intermittent problems by not having good contact. If you're having problems getting the card in the slot, by all means, please resist the temptation to force it into the slot. Violence and technology do not make good bedfellows. You should feel a slight snap as the card drops into the slot, and then if you recall, earlier that AGP and PCI Express slots they use a retention mechanism at the back of the slot to help stabilize that heavy card. Now for these slots, you might have to use one finger to push the stabilizer to the side and as you push the card into the slot. Also, the card might snap into the slot and then retention mechanism would then snap into position, and sometimes I have found that stupid retention mechanism gets in the way. When you're all done with that, insert the screw that anchors the card back into the slot, and then be sure to use the screw that you took out. If it's not present, the card can creep out of the slot over time. And when that happens, you might end up getting a short circuit and then actually destroy the card or the slot in the motherboard. Connect any power cords or data cables that the card might use. So for example, if you're putting in a video card, you might have a 6 or an 8 pin PCI Express power connector off the power supply that would need to be plugged into that card. Power supply doesn't have the right connector, perhaps you can buy an inexpensive adapter to convert the 4-pin Molex connector to the PCI Express connector if need be. Okay. Make a quick check of all the connections and the cables and then replace the case cover. If you want, and if your system will allow you to, you can leave the case cover off in the event that you need to reinstall the card if it doesn't fire up the way you want it to. Start the system, and when Windows starts, it should detect the new hardware device, say it's present, and install the drivers. And then you may have to just follow the wizard to go ahead and do any of the extra work. If need be, insert the CD that came with the card and launch the setup program on the CD. The card documentation will tell you the name of the program, for example, setup.exe, autorun.exe, whatever. And then click the install video drivers if you're doing a video card, and then follow the on-screen instructions. And if you're using downloaded driver files, double-click the file that you downloaded to run the setup. After the drivers have been installed, you might be asked to restart your system. You can then configure the card or use the application software if you have problems with the installation. You can then turn to the device manager and look for any errors that might be appearing in the device manager to assist you in troubleshooting your problem. So when we install a video card, there are some things that we may need to look at in troubleshooting, and things that just possibly could have gone wrong. For example, when you first power up the system, if we hear a whining sound, it's caused by the card not getting enough power. Okay, make sure you have a 6-pin or 8-pin power cord connected to the card if it required one. The power supply might be inadequate, so the card is not getting enough power. When you first start up the system, you see nothing but a black screen. Most likely it's caused this is caused by the onboard video port not being disabled by a setup, in which case you would have to pull the card out, plug the video back into the onboard, go into the BIOS setup, and then disable it manually. When you first start up the system, you might hear a series of beeps. Okay, BIOS cannot detect the video card because of the long beeps. Make sure that the video card has been securely seated. The video slot or video card might be bad. Error messages about videos, the video may appear when Windows starts. This can be caused by a conflict in onboard video and the video card. Try disabling the onboard video and device manager. Games crash or lock up, try updating the drivers for the motherboard, the video card, and the sound card. Also, install the latest version of DirectX. Now, this is all based on, you make sure you're doing it on the Windows system. Then try uninstalling the game and then reinstalling it, and then download any patches that the game may have for it. Okay. Now let's turn our attention to a little more information about 3 types of cards that you might be called on to install. With any adapter card that you install, be sure to get familiar with the user guide before you start the installation. A big one that we see a lot today is sound cards. People want the 5-to-1, 9-to-1, whatever. They want the big surround sound. So a sound card typically comes as an expansion card that has sound ports. Some of the onboard sound cards that are embedded on the motherboard do have surround sound capabilities. Okay, we're going to be looking at a Sound Blaster card that uses a PCI Express 1 slot, supports up to 8 surround sound which means a 7.1 speakers. The color-coded speaker ports are for all the different speakers, front, left, right, center, and so on. There's two SPDIF, which is the Sony Philips Digital Interconnect format. Those ports are used to connect to an external sound equipment, like if you're going to put in a CD or a DVD player. A TV tuner card can turn your computer into a television. Okay, that's a common card that we have today. Now, a port on the card receives input from the TV cable and then lets you view television on your computer monitor. If the TV signal is analog, the TV tuner card can convert it to digital. Now, a video capture card lets you capture the video input and then save it to a file on your hard drive. Now, it's important that you know the difference when you're dealing with your customers on the difference between a TV tuner card and a video capture card. They are not the same. A video capture card allows you to capture video, okay, and then save it to your hard drive. So for example, if you were going from a digital camera, okay, to your capture card, or from a webcam to your capture card, a TV tuner card allows you to literally hook the cable system up to it, okay, for your television cable, and then watch TV through your cable system. I think I have one here. Hang on. Alright, I'm back. Now, I did find one. Okay, here's a TV tuner card. Okay, nice and close there for you. This is a TV tuner card, and as you can see, I can hook my cable TV right up to this piece right here. And what you really can't tell is, then here I have the capture card piece. Okay, so this is what we would call a combination TV tuner and capture card. Now, what comes with it, it looks like a PS2 port here, but it's really like an S-video. And then I would plug this. You get a good look at it here. Okay, snaps into that, and then as you can see here, I've got the different ports. Okay, to plug in my all my peripheral devices, including my video, my right and left audio. I can plug in my DVD player here, my S-video, all going through my PC. And this one actually goes into a PCI card, not a PCI Express. Okay, put that back. Be right back here. I gotta go get one more thing. Okay, now that card that I showed you wasn't one of the high-end video capture cards, but it does well in a pinch. I can get all my cable TV on it, I can capture, and I was able to use it to convert a lot of the videos that we had on our home camera systems. I had to buy that one so that, you know, like all the old baby pictures and stuff like that, and all the old videos that were actually on a VHS cassette tape, I was able to use that card to convert those to DVD. Now, that is everything that I have for you on this session. Be sure to go online to the Classroom Management System, do the hands-on projects 8.3 and 8.4, then come on back here and we'll finish up this chapter with supporting the video subsystem and then supporting storage devices. And that'll actually knock out chapter 8 for us. And that's it. See you.